besties. Okay, so I know that we have a lot to cover and I want to get into all of it, but in order to do so I do need to start from the top. So there's a lot to cover. I'm going to try and keep it straight to the point. I do want to say that I've been really nervous about making this video just because I don't have any ill intentions toward my husband at this point. This story and this segment in my life, I've moved on, but I think that to share what genuinely did happen, I've always wanted that because just nobody knows what happened. And so for that, I want to be able to speak my piece and share the story the real way. Okay, so Owen and I started dating in high school. I was 13 years old. He was 15. We broke up all the time, got back together. It was just like a typical high school relationship. But we were really close, and I think closer than most high school relationships, because by the time I was almost 15, I was in a really bad situation at home and I did need somewhere to go, so I just ended up moving in with him and his family. I came from a very toxic household. I grew up in a really shitty environment and he did not, and so for that caused a lot of issues in our relationship, especially just between him and I, not only him and I, but me and his parents. I have never seen a normal relationship. Screaming and fighting is what I was used to. And so I had a hard time getting used to a normal environment. And it was a challenge for everyone, all of us in the household. But despite all of that, we made it work. And like I said, we had our ups and downs. When I was about 16, we got an apartment, and we lived in the apartment together for almost a year until we moved back in with his parents to save up money to buy a house. At this point, we were getting older and things were getting more serious. We weren't fighting as much. We kind of had shit figured out as best as we could. And it was good. We really did love each other, and we had so much fun together, and we learned so much growing up together. And I think that part of me now struggles because he was all that I had for so long, and he was my best friend. And so it's not only am I losing my husband, but I'm also losing my best friend, and it's difficult. But let's be real, I have issues, he has issues. More specifically, I struggle really bad with anxiety. I have horrible anxiety. I have panic attacks, and it makes me do crazy shit. And June 13th of 2000 and what year was it? I can't really remember the year that I got engaged. I think it was 2020. Owen proposed to me at my graduation party. It was so sweet, and we both thought that we were so ready for this. At the time, we were still living with his parents, but shortly after, from June to October, and October 1st, we closed and moved into our first house. So we bought a house together, and our wedding date was set for October 1st of the next year. So it was back to back. We were just doing all of these things, trying to, figure shit out. So anyway, we move into the house, and like I said, I was 18 at this time. We were getting older, and things were getting good. We were settling down. I think that we were getting into this routine, and when you do things at such a young age and you have to grow up so fast, we really got into this boring habit of just doing nothing and just living, and that got hard over time, and I started to get really bad anxiety because I was just so tired of just not doing anything, and I would freak myself out about it. So April 5th, that's his birthday, it was April 5th before our wedding, I had a really bad panic attack, and it was really traumatizing for me, Owen, and just like everyone around me, I lost who I was. My personality was like gone. I couldn't like function ever. And I ended up developing a very, very, very bad, very severe attachment issue to Owen. And when I say very severe, I mean it was absolutely insane. So I could not go, be anywhere without him with me. So it was really bad. I lost my job because I couldn't function away from him. And then I started sleeping in my car every day to be with him while he was at work. I'd just sit out in the car and wait for him to be done working. And it was so detrimental to both him and I. Like, he didn't want to leave because he didn't want to make me feel anxious or anything. And I didn't want to leave because my brain was telling me that if I left him, something bad would happen. And this lasted for like a year, and it was a serious struggle, and we really did have maybe a year and a half, but we had a really hard time with it. And we figured it all out though, and it worked for us. A lot of people, you know, they had their opinions on it, and I do too now that I'm not in the situation. I knew that it was crazy at the time, but also, like, when you're in that state of mind, you don't give a fuck. Like, I just didn't care. I was like, I know this is crazy. I know I need to fix this, but here I am, and this is what I'm doing. So, that's a little bit of the backstory. For the next part, I need to get into, what happened around, at, and after our wedding. Okay, so I want to talk about the year leading up to my wedding. When we bought that house, there was like this little bar up the street, and that's where we met some of those bridesmaids. So the one in the suit and then the second one that I talked about, they worked at that bar, and every time we'd go up there, you know, they seemed super cool. It's a really small town, so like everyone there was really old, so to see younger people, it was pretty refreshing. And I remember we had been going up there for a while before we like had ever talked to them, and then one night somehow we started having a conversation, and then they were invited back to my house for like a bonfire. And we had like parties all the time at this point. So when we bought our house, you know, the freedom of not having parents to tell you what to do and what not to do. So I think that it was just really exciting for us to kind of have that freedom. I did not drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do anything. I have never gotten into that kind of stuff, but my husband did, and so did everyone else, all of his friends and stuff. And so, yeah, so we invited them over, and I remember like that first night, it was so fun, and they were really cool, and I was having a lot of fun. But I remember toward the end of the night, and this is when I got that bad vibe about Ainsley, like deciding that I didn't think that I liked her, and it just wasn't for me, was we were having a really deep conversation out by the fire, and literally mid-conversation, she just starts throwing up everywhere, like directly next to me. And I remember being like, oh my God, are you good? Are you good? And because I didn't know what the fuck was going on, I was like, why is she throwing up? And she didn't even have anything to drink. And then she started talking about the other girl, the one that was in the suit, and some really personal things that happened to her as a kid, between like an assault between a family member and her. And I was just like, first of all, why are you throwing up about someone else's business, and why is that even being brought up right now? I just kind of thought that was weird, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I thought that was really weird. And later on in the night, whatever, I started talking to Chloe, which is the one that was in the suit, and I was like, hey, like, I hope I'm not like crossing any boundaries, but like, this is what happened. I really didn't like this. It was a really weird conversation. She just like started throwing up and then crying about, like, literal tears, crying about what happened to you when you were younger. And I was like, that made me really uncomfortable. And she was like, oh yeah, she does that. And she was like, and by the way, she wasn't throwing up because of that. She was throwing up because she just did coke in your bathroom. And I was like, what? So I was like, okay. And immediately, like, that just set the tone for me. Like, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I don't really like this person, but whatever. And so, yeah, that was, like, our first night hanging out. That first night, she ended up hooking up with my husband's best friend. And, you know, he's a boy and he does that, and so we didn't really expect anything from it, but they did start dating, and so she was coming around a lot more. And it was like, whatever, I just learned to be respectful of it. I know my husband and his friend were best friends, so I just didn't, you know, I didn't want to intervene, and I pretty much just do my own thing when I'm at home. Like, I would just stay in the room and they could do whatever the fuck they want. I don't care. But yeah, that's how we became friends, and we got really close with these girls. More specifically, the one in the suit. We got really close with her, and she had a girlfriend at the time. And her girlfriend was so fun. We loved her so much. And then I think because of my anxiety, I started to just, like, give up on a lot of things. Like, I started to just not give a fuck, and, like, I would do just about anything to just get my mind off of how I was feeling ever. And so these parties started to get a little bit out of hand. We would start playing Truth or Dare, Spin the Bottle, you know, all the things. And at first it was just me and the girls, and, like, that's cool or whatever, you know. Me and my husband, we had a lot of fun with them. But then, like, one night, I don't remember how it started, but it started becoming him and me and the girls. And so a lot would go down at these parties. And I think, like, at first, I obviously was really uncomfortable, and I was like, holy shit, like, I'm not, this isn't me, I'm not down. But then over time, I was like, you know, whatever, fuck it, we're all friends, like, what's the big deal? And so, I mean, I got used to it pretty quickly, but it started happening so often, like, every single time they would come over, and I don't know, like, I guess dealt with it, and that was that. So we started having these parties, and we started having a lot of fun with these friends, and it was really that. I feel like it at the time, like, that's what I thought. I just thought we were having fun. And we were all really close, really good friends. They both ended up in my wedding party, and at this point, like, we were still new to each other, so we didn't really know a lot about each other. But we were getting to know each other, and obviously when you're doing fun party games with each other, you start to get closer too. So, I mean, that's pretty much... that's that. We were all good up until my wedding. And then the night of my wedding came. So before I get any further into, like, what was happening on my wedding night, I do want to mention that, and this is a big part of the story that I forgot to mention. My husband, when I met him, I was, like I said, 13. We were really young, and I obviously had never done anything. Like, he was my first boyfriend, and that was not the case for him. So for him, like, he'd already been with a lot of people and, like, had his fair share of, like, fun. And at the time, like, sure, it was like weird for me, but it was whatever also. Like, I was like, okay. But as we got older, the more that it started getting serious, the more that I started thinking, like, I have not experienced anything outside of this relationship. And, you know, like, I remember, like, voicing that to him and saying, like, hey, like, this is what I'm worried about and whatever. So now back to, like, leading up to the wedding, when all of that was going on and watching him, like, be back in this environment, I was like, what the fuck? Like, and yet again, here he is still experiencing more than what I have. And like I said, like, it was a really good distraction for me because I did have really bad anxiety, and like I just wanted to always have my mind off of everything in whatever way that I could. And so this was a really big distraction. But I remember talking to my husband like right before like a lot of this was going down and saying, I'm scared to marry you because I do have this thought in the back of my head that I haven't experienced much, and I'm afraid that like one day in the future I will want to. And I don't want to do that to you, and I don't want it to ruin our marriage, and I don't want anything bad to come from it. And he was like, I completely understand, and like I'm okay with that. Like when that time comes, we will deal with it. And I remember just being like, are you sure? Like I really, like this is big for me. This is a big thing. Like I don't want this to come up later and affect things. And he was like, no, it's okay. Like I completely understand. And so, yeah. So that happened before, and then we did end up getting married, and the night of my wedding, everything was great. It was a great wedding. Like seriously, we had so much fun. But I remember it was like toward the end of the night, we were about to do the sparkler send off, and I walked out of the reception area to like the smoking area, and there was drama. Like I didn't know what it was because I was like, what the fuck? But there was drama. Everyone was talking shit. Someone looked like they were ready to fight someone else, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And so at the time I remember just like I went and got my husband, and I was like, why is there so much drama? What the fuck happened? And like this is like out of control. And so my husband was like, okay, I'll find out what happened. So Ainsley, which was the bridesmaid in the red dress, and Chloe, the bridesmaid in the suit, they were really close friends. And we met them together at that bar that I was talking about. And so that night, I guess Chloe told Ainsley, she was like, hey, like, I'm just looking out for you. I want you to know that Noah, which is my husband's best friend, groomsman, Ainsley's boyfriend, was just making out with some woman. And the woman in question was my stepmom, my dad's baby mama, my little sister in the video, my junior bridesmaid, her mom. And we were like, what the fuck? Like, no. And I just, like, yeah. Okay, so Chloe said that. So I guess Ainsley found out once Chloe told her. Ainsley walked right up to Noah, I guess, when he was next to Christy, and just, like, slapped Noah in the face. Like, okay, girl, power move. No. Like, that's weird. Whatever. Like, we could have discussed this after the wedding, whatever. You know, like, it was weird. Like, and it caused so much more drama. And Noah was refusing it. Like, he was like, no, that did not happen. But, you know, we had our suspicions. And it kind of, like, validated that he did do it that night when we were on our way to the hotel from the wedding. And my husband called and was like, hey, let me know if you need anything. Like, I'm sorry, like, that all this happened. And he was like, no, it's okay. Like, Christy said I could stay the night at her house. What? You guys just met for the first time today, and she's saying you can stay the night at her house, and you didn't kiss her. Yet someone said that they saw you kissing her. I don't know. So me and my husband looked at each other and we were like, yeah, he fucking did. And then it was later on, like a year later, verified by Christy that yes, that did happen. But not my business. And at this point I was really upset because I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it's almost the end of the night. Like, can we just have our fun and then leave, and then they can deal with their drama like after? And I don't know, it was weird. And so by the time that we did leave the reception, Ainsley was crying, Noah was crying, Chloe was pissed, Chloe's girlfriend was pissed, and whatever. So I was like, we're not dealing with this shit right now. Like, we need to go to the hotel, do us, like, we just got married, like, let's have fun, and they can deal with their own fucking drama. Like, they can deal with it all on their own. And so that's what we did. We went to the hotel. But then a couple days later, my husband ended up calling Noah, and Ainsley was there. And that's when a bunch more drama went down. Okay, so after the wedding, we got back and stuff. My husband and we talked to Noah and Ainsley, and they were just like talking so much shit about Chloe and Chloe's girlfriend and how she's such a fucking liar and that Chloe's obsessed with Ainsley and just wants to break her up because she can't share her and she's like weirdly in love with her and like just all this bullshit. And so me and my husband are like, yeah, whatever. And then we start talking and we're like, this is getting weird. Like, first of all, we knew that Noah did do that. So Ainsley looked stupid, but like, my husband would not allow me to tell her. And you know how many times I tried to tell this girl that he was cheating on her? Because when they first started dating in the very beginning, even when they were like, even when he asked her to be his girlfriend, Noah told me and my husband that he was still fucking some other girl. Like, he was like, yeah, I've still been like sleeping with this other girl. And I was just like, I didn't even say anything. I was just like, I'm good. Like, I just, you know, like, and I, as a woman, the way that I would really want someone to tell me this, but I just couldn't do that because my husband was so like, do not say anything. And so, you know, because of him, I didn't say anything. And so that was that. So it just felt really sad to watch Chloe and Ainsley like not be friends anymore because of this thing that happened. And Ainsley thinks Chloe's lying and Noah's playing along with it, and Chloe thinks Ainsley's fucking stupid. And so it just, yeah, the drama between them just like took off. And then eventually like nobody was talking anymore except for my husband and I and Chloe and Chloe's girlfriend. Like, we still remained friends. I mean, my husband kind of, like, it was easy to kind of, like, pick a side, I guess, and it was Chloe's side because we knew, and because, like, the way that Ainsley was talking about her, like, you know, you're obsessed with me, like, you're in love with me. It was just weird, and we were like, we didn't mess with it. Like, we were just like, I don't know. So we started hanging out with Chloe a lot more, and, like, it was cool. Chloe ended up talking to us about, like, needing somewhere to live, and my husband and I are very generous people, and so we told her she could live with us, and that's a whole different story on how she was a shitty roommate and how that friendship broke apart because of being roommates. But to get back on track with what happened to me and my husband, we ended up having a Halloween party about 10-ish days after our wedding. So this was the day of our Halloween party, and this was like mid-party. Ainsley and Noah were not there. That's Chloe. She was there. That's one of my other friends, my husband, and just like, yeah, it was just a party. So the night of the party was cool and all, like, it started off really good. But the night before, we had like another little like get together with just like Chloe's girlfriend, another one of our girlfriends. And so it was just like the 5 of us the night before. And like I said, when we all like got together, we started to play games and do these things. And so the night before the party, whatever, it was just another night. And then the day of the party, we started inviting more people who like had never even been to our house over. And like, yeah, so it was more of like not like just like a friends only, it was just like an actual party. And so we were having a lot of fun. It was like, obviously everyone was wearing costumes, and you know, we were trying to like put all the drama aside and just have a good night. And at this point, I remember, like, right after my wedding, talking to my husband about how much he'd been drinking as of recently, and just saying, hey, like, listen, I think you should stop drinking, like, at least a little bit. This is getting, like, a little bit out of control, and I'm starting to worry about you, as alcoholics run in his family. And, like, first-handedly, like, I've watched alcoholics hurt him and me. So I was just like, I just don't want, like, I know that we've been having so much fun, but like, we're married now, like, it's time to get serious and like grow up. And so he was like, it's not that big of a deal, like, I'm not even drinking that much, you're taking it too serious. And I was like, okay. So the party night comes, we're all hanging out, my husband gets really fucked up, and he was already really fucked up like at 11 p.m. And then someone dared him to take a shot of like moonshine. And I was like, no, don't do it. And I was like, do not take the shot, because he was already like well over the limit that he needed to be. And I knew that if he did the shot, that it would just go downhill from there. And he's looking at me like, I have to. And everyone in the room starts like cheering him on. Do it, do it, do it. And I'm sitting there like, don't fucking do it. And of course, like peer pressure and being a 23-year-old boy, he did it. He took the shot. Good for him. But then the whole night just went downhill. So like I was pissed off, but I got over it. I was like, I'm just gonna ignore him. And then everyone was pretty fucked up. Mind you, I did say that I didn't drink, so I was sober. And it was weird. Like my husband went from like 0 to 100 at this point, and he like was taking all of his clothes off, like running around the house, like the outside of the house, running around. And I was just like, okay, we need to fucking chill the fuck out now. And he literally was so drunk that he was not remembering my name. Like he didn't know who I was. He had this dead look in his face. I actually have a video that I took of Chloe and then him, and you can see like how dead in his face he looks. One sec. So like I said, yeah, the dead look in his face. And like I said, this is when everything started to go downhill. He did walk away for a little bit, and I was out in the living room like talking to some of our friends, just we were hanging out. And then he comes and gets me and says, I need you. So I went with him, and it was to Chloe's room, because she was our roommate at the time, and one of our other friends was in there, and she was crying, and she was just talking about how she had something going on and whatever. My husband wanted me to like be there for her, so I was trying to be there for her. She ended up leaving, and then I ended up going back into Chloe's room and talking to Chloe and Chloe's girlfriend at the time. And I was back there for maybe like 30 minutes, like not even kidding. I was back there just like talking and wasn't paying any attention to what was going on at the party. I walked out of the room, and my husband's face down on the ground in our bedroom, not responding to anyone, not responding to me. He keeps calling me Chloe. And then he kept saying something really weird about my cousin. My minor cousin was at this party. It wasn't supposed to get crazy out of hand. It was just supposed to be a Halloween party, but she was 17, almost 18, I think, or yeah, I don't know. But she was there, and he started like saying something really weird about her, and I couldn't understand him because his speech was so slurred, and it was like nothing he was saying was making sense. So I was like, whatever, like I tried to like literally pick him up, and I couldn't get him up. So one of his other best friend, Jordan, he tried to help me, and I like tried dragging him to the bathroom to put him in the shower and like get water over him, because at this point I was really scared for him. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like I've never seen him like this. And so Jordan was like, just give him a second, leave him in the bathroom, give him a second. I was like, okay. I walked out to the living room. One of my best friends, she's sitting on the couch, and she's like crying. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? So I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, I need you to come here. Like, I need to talk to you. And so she pulls me aside into the bathroom, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? And she was like, Taylor, I swear to God, Taylor, like, I would not tell you this, and you know it. And she was like, Owen, my husband, was just making out with your cousin. I'm like, are we on the same planet here? Like, are you being dead ass? Like, because no, that's not true. And she was like, I swear to God, I promise on everything he was. And so I went out and I started asking, did this happen to our other friends? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, hell no. So I stormed back to my husband, and all of a sudden he's just up and good, and he can talk again. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, seriously, what is happening? And then he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, da 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 da, like. And then he's back to can't talk again, can't think, can't do anything, running around the house. I'm dragging his ass to the room. I'm like, dude, like, you're done. We're done. And then he's like, your cousin needs to sleep in our bed. Your cousin needs to sleep in our bed. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm gonna fuck you up. Keep saying it. And he was like, she needs somewhere to sleep. She needs a blanket. I'm like, why the fuck are we worried about her? Like, go take your ass to bed. Laid him down, whatever. I call my mom crying because I'm like, I don't even know what to do at this point. Like, first of all, this, like I said, peak anxiety. So, like, I'm anxious that he's, like, non-responsive and can't help me. Like, if something bad's gonna happen, which is crazy, I know, but whatever. And then on top of it, like, I'm anxious that what's happening? Why is everything so out of control? So he gets up in the bedroom again and he starts trying to like kiss me and grab me, and I'm like, dude, no, get the fuck off me. He pushes me up against the wall. He's like trying to take my clothes off of me, and I'm like, this is getting out of hand. So Jordan comes in and he's like, oh, Owen, leave her alone. Get off of her. Leave her alone. He's like grabbing me up. Like, Jordan's trying to grab me away from Owen, pushing Owen off me. He's like, dude, leave her alone. Seriously. You need to go to bed. You need to stop. And so I'm like, I can't do this. Jordan's telling me, he's like, Taylor, please get out of here. Like, seriously, I don't feel comfortable with you in here. Get out of here. And I'm like, this cannot be real. So I ended up following Jordan out to the kitchen to talk to him. And I was like, so just like upset and so hurt. And I'm like, I just don't understand what's going on or how this is happening. Like 10 days after we're married and this is what's happening. Like, okay. And then Jordan's like, girl, just like stay out of there tonight. Like, seriously, like, I don't feel comfortable with this. Like, I'm not leaving, but I just need you to know that, like, I'm worried. And then my husband walks out, drunk as hell, stumbling out, and his ass, like, starts smacking the shit out of Jordan. Like, I'm talking, like, full arm, like, smacking the shit out of him. And Jordan's like, stop, like, doesn't want to fight him back. And I'm just like, what is going on? So at this point, I was able to get my husband into the room, lay him down, and, like, I don't know if I, like, scared it into him, but I was like, I'm so dead serious at this point. You're done. Like, you're done. I was, like, I wanted my cousin to go. I was like, bitch, you need to leave. But, you know, at this point, I was like, I don't know if she'd been drinking. I don't think she did, so she knew exactly what she was doing, which was even weirder. More to the story, I don't know. Weird AF. And I also have screenshots of a few weeks later, my cousin telling me what really happened. So keep that in mind. I'll bring those up. But I just, you know, that night really set a lot of standards for me. I called my mom crying. My mom, I was like, you need to come get me, because I was, like, ready to go. Mind you, my mom was 50 minutes away from me. She drove to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning, a 50-minute drive, just to come in and, like, be like, she thought, I don't know what she thought, but she thought something way worse had gone down. And she's, like, over here yelling at Owen. Owen's yelling back at her, talking about getting in bed with us. I'm like, what the actual fuck? And so, yeah, he was long gone. I realized that the sound cut out in the last video, but basically what I said was that after my mom left and after everything, like, settled down, he wasn't in his right mind until, like, 4:30 the next day. He woke up at 1 in the afternoon, still drunk, and then went back to sleep, and around 4:30, that's when he woke up. And I told him what happened, and he didn't believe me, and it was like, I don't know, he just seemed, like, shocked about it, but also, like, you did that. He said over and over again, like, that wasn't me last night. And keep that sentence in mind, because he uses that a lot in the future of our relationship. But yeah, he said that wasn't him, and he apologized. And I told him, I was like, listen, like everything's done. Like no more parties, like no more drinking. Like you cannot drink anymore. I will leave. Like I'm not kidding. And so we tried our best to move on from that situation, and it wasn't until about like a month later that our next problem arose. And I will say, like, after that whole party and after that whole scenario, we really stopped talking to everyone. Like we kind of just fell off with everyone and took some time to ourselves to really figure out like what was going on and like what we're gonna do moving forward, because it's like time to grow up. It's time, like, okay, we're married, like I said, like it's over with. So he stopped drinking for good after that, and everything was going really good. It was just us. We spent a lot of time like just with each other and talking about things and talking about what we wanted. And then we started trying to have a baby. And I don't know about you guys, but at first I thought it was gonna be super easy. Like, you know, you try so long to not get pregnant that you're like thinking it's just gonna happen. And that was not the case. We tried for so long and did not get pregnant. We ended up, after like a certain amount of months of not getting pregnant, going to a fertility counselor, and he was tested. Everything was good on his end. They said like he's very healthy. I was tested. Everything looked normal, but they just kept telling me I had what you'd call unexplained infertility. And that was huge in our relationship. It caused so many issues. We fought so much, and we were just so like tired and exhausted and couldn't get pregnant, couldn't do this. And, you know, it was really hard for us. And so from that time after our wedding and like moving forward, we kind of just like started like distancing from each other. And he started playing like the video game, which he never played video games, but once he started doing it, like he was on this every single day, all day long, like, and then I just wasn't really talking to him anymore, and I would just kind of lay in bed and do my own thing, and he'd be doing his own thing, and like it really split us up. We ended up getting a job together at the same company, and for a minute it brought us together because, you know, the car rides to work, the car rides home, like we could talk about work together, and we both really liked our job, and that was good. But even after that, there was a couple coworkers there, and like I was having some trust issues after everything that went down. And he would act really weird around them, and I'd like walk up and like overhear things, and I'd just be like, this isn't it for me. And we ended up hanging out with one of them, and it was a very weird hangout experience. She came over, got super drunk, was like trying to touch on my husband, talking about like, have you ever had a threesome? And I'm just like, that's not what we're doing. Like, we're not, no. And so me and him ended up going to bed. She went to sleep in the guest room. I guess she got up in the middle of the night, went to the kitchen, took off all of her clothes because my other friend was on the couch. She witnessed that happening. And I was just like, I'm not repeating this again. Like, I'm tired of all of this. And like, I just want to like grow up and be done and like just be normal and live a normal life and like work and like each other again. And so after that happened, I was like, I can't. I did not want to be friends with anyone anymore because you can't trust anyone. And I have a very blunt, very straightforward personality, and I just say things exactly how the fuck they are, and people take that to heart, and that's fine. Like, I get it. I get that it can be rude sometimes, but I just don't beat around the bush. That's just not me. It never has been. And so I was just done. And then I started to fall like into this like mini depression because it was like, I felt so alone, and it was just, you know, we were like roommates. We were just like living together, and I was still really attached to him. So like we never left each other, but like at the same time, it wasn't healthy and it wasn't good. And this went on for another year and some months, and over that course of time, we just like kind of were detaching from each other. And it was like around 3 months before we split up, I every day was like crying to him, like sobbing, like begging him to love me, give me attention. Like, I want to fix this. I'm scared for our marriage. Like, all of these things, and it just was never, like, he was like, yeah, okay, I get it, and then it's the same thing over and over again, and it was just getting really draining and really exhausting, and I started to not talk to family, like, it was just getting out of hand, and then how the divorce came upon us. After everything, and after, like, living like roommates, I had a conversation with Owen again, and this time it was more serious, and I was just saying, like, listen, I am not getting the attention that I need in our relationship. I don't know what to do. I just need you to change for me. And like I said, we'd already talked like that so many times, but nothing happened. So at this point, I was like, no, seriously, like, you need to take me seriously. I can't do this anymore. And essentially what he told me was that we all crave attention in different ways, and that I give him too much attention and I could give him a little bit less, and that if I wanted attention, I could find it elsewhere. And so with that, we talked about it, and I said, so you wouldn't care if I started, like, hanging out with another guy? And he said, I mean, no, he said it depends, but no. And so I was just like, okay. And at this point, I think that we were both so hurt and just, like, so drained and so tired of this, like, back and forth in our relationship that really, like, we were both so mentally not in the right mind. And fast forward like a week, and I'm sitting up at the front desk of my job, and someone comes in for an interview, and I remember this interview candidate walked right through the door, and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. This is nothing new for our relationship. Like, we'd always, like, talked about how we were attracted to people, and, like, always said, like, oh, this person's very attractive, and it was never an issue. So this wasn't, like, anything weird, but I remember texting one of my coworkers and being like, oh my god, the interview candidate is so hot. And she was like, oh my gosh, let me see him, da 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 da. I think I actually have the text. I should put a screenshot of it. But, yeah, I was like, he's so cute. And then that night, I went home. I actually, like, was fucking around and, like, told my boss, I was like, hire him, he's so cute. She was like, we can't just hire based off of looks. But he did end up getting the job. That night, I went home and I talked to Owen, and I was like, this interview candidate came in to be on my team, and he's so attractive, and I want to get to know him. And Owen was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, he genuinely didn't care. He was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, okay. So about 2 or 3 weeks later is when he started working at our company, at the company we worked at together. And, like, at first, I was just, like, messing around and, like, wasn't really thinking anything of it. But him and I were weirdly, like, flirting back and forth. Like, it was very, like, low-key, but it was happening. We were flirting. We had a, like, happy hour at work, and what those would look like is everyone would just drink and eat and hang out. And I went down to the happy hour, and he was there, and I remember he was standing behind me, and I was just, like, talking to my coworkers, and I was like, and they were talking about, like, who they're attracted to, or, like, what type of person they're attracted to. And I mean, it was just, like, a friendly conversation, and I remember saying, like, oh, I love tall, skinny boys. And mind you, he's standing behind me, and I can just feel his energy be like, oh, I'm a tall and skinny boy. And then, like, from that moment, I was like, you know, I kind of like him. Like, I want to talk to him. I want to get to know him. And my husband was there for the happy hour. He watched this happen. Like I said, we were at this point in our relationship where we just weren't connected. He didn't care. I feel like we were just so done before we were actually done. And so I started talking to the new guy, and I was like, hey, like, tell me about yourself. But he was pretty shy. He didn't, like, really say much at first. And then I watched as one of our coworkers was, like, trying to show him around, and I was getting a little bit jealous, and I was like, no. So I, like, went up to him, and I was like, do you want to come up to the front desk and see what I do? like I don't do anything, but come up to the front desk. And so he did, and he sat up there with me for a while, and we just talked, and he told me a little bit about him and his situation, and that he's a single dad. And I was like, okay, like, cool. And so I don't know, I kind of like dropped it there, but then also, like, for some reason my brain took that as like an in. So here comes the next day. We had a team lunch. Every time someone got hired on, we would have a team lunch where everyone just like sat around and got to know the new team member. And I was a little bit late to the lunch, and the whole table's full, and there's only one seat open, and surprise, it's directly next to him. So I sat right next to him. But we like ignored each other the whole lunch. Like, I don't know, you could feel the energy, but we were just like not really talking. And so later on in the day, I started talking to Owen about him again, and Owen was like, he didn't care, like I said. He was like, whatever, do what you want. And so I sent him a message, the new hire a message, and I was like, hey, like, if you ever need a babysitter, I know you're a single dad, but here's my phone number, like, please reach out. And were my intentions to be a babysitter? I feel like I made myself believe that at the time, but those weren't my intentions. And immediately he texted me, and he's like, hey, what's up? It's so-and-so. And I was like, oh, okay, hi. And then that night we just started like texting. I went out with Owen that night. We went out and like did karaoke with our friends. And I was still texting him. And then the next day was the weekend, because that was a Friday. I was talking to Owen, and I was like, I really like him, like, I want to hang out with him. And Owen was like, okay, like, he didn't care. And like, I think the more that like I was watching him not care, the more it was genuinely hurting me, and the more that I was like, okay, if you don't care, then neither do I. Okay, so Blaine and I were getting closer, like I said. We started hanging out more, and my husband knew about it. He'd say hey to him at work, they'd say hey to each other, whatever. I started talking to Blaine at night on the phone, and I think my husband was actually thankful for this, because he didn't want to talk to me, so he had someone else to do it for him. And he said that a lot. Like, I used to ask him, like, why don't you call me pretty? And he's like, oh, because I have Jordan to do that, like his friend that would call me pretty. And I'm just like, you know, it just made me feel so bad about myself. But moving on, we started hanging out. We hung out one night, and it was at my house. My husband was there. He said, what's up? They said, what's up? Then we just went out, had dinner with a friend, then went back to my house and just hung out. And then he left. The following Monday, that was on a Friday, the following Monday, we hung out again, and it was fine. We just hung out for a couple hours after work, and then talked to my husband, was telling him that I was actually really starting to like Blaine, and I don't know if he was like fine with it, but like just a little uncomfortable. And so like we tried to talk about that, but you know, I just don't think that he really was like giving a fuck at all at this point. And so I said, I want to hang out with Blaine this weekend, and he said, well, then he can come over to our house. And so Friday comes along, and Blaine does come to our house, and he comes over, and we all decided to go out to the bar to just hang out. We went out to the bar. We had a really good time together. I drove because they were drinking, and then drove back home. Blaine ended up staying the night because he had drinks, and yeah, it was fine. And like at that point, Blaine stayed the night and like never left. He also, his lease was going to expire soon at the place he was staying, so Owen and I talked about him moving in. I was kind of joking when I first brought it up, but then Owen messaged Blaine, and he was like, hey, move in. Like, yeah, move in. So the night before, Owen and I completely split. Owen walked to the bar. He went and had drinks and drank a lot more than I guess he could handle. He ended up calling me it was like 11, and he asked me if I could come get him, if Blaine and I could come get him, because he didn't know where he was and he was lost. And obviously, of course, I was gonna go get him. I don't care what terms we're on. If someone needs help, I'll always be there, especially, you know, he was my husband still. And so Went to go get him, found him walking around, barely walking. He was like stumbling all over the place. And I hurried up and got out of the car, ran up to him, asked him if he was okay. He was crying. I asked him what was wrong. He wouldn't really talk to me. I put his like arm over my shoulder to try and get him into the car. He got into the car. He was mumbling, slurring his words, and just, I don't know, it was like a repeat of Halloween. Like, he was not there. He had the dead look in his eyes, and I don't know, like, so he got in the car, we start driving, I look back, and he's on his phone, and I just had a very weird feeling, and unfortunately, I made a dumb decision and reached back and grabbed his phone from him. Once I grabbed his phone from him, he immediately started screaming at me to give him his phone back. His first reaction was to reach up. He grabbed me by the hair, was like trying to pull me into the back seat. He was choking me, screaming at me. Blaine was like yelling to stop at both of us, and then Owen was screaming at him to mind his own business. And it was just getting out of hand. And Blaine was trying to drive and obviously wasn't getting anywhere because of this back and forth between Owen and I. So Blaine tried to get Owen off of me. Owen was grabbing Blaine's hair and was like hitting him, like trying to punch him. And so Blaine like reached back, set him, I don't know what he did, set him straight, but Owen sat back there and didn't talk for the rest of the minute and a half ride that we had, because we were literally right around the corner from my house. But as soon as we pulled into the driveway, Owen was like screaming that he was going to beat Blaine's ass, telling him to get out of the car, this and that. And I'm just like, no, like, we're not doing this. I'm trying to keep Owen in the car because he's already ready to get out. And I'm like, no, telling Blaine to go. Owen gets out of the car. Blaine's door gets opened. And next thing you know, Owen's throwing punches and chasing Blaine around. And then I'm like, I didn't know what to do, so I'm like screaming, trying to like grab Owen, begging him to stop. He was so like out of it that I don't know, there was just no thoughts in his head. There was absolutely none. And he was just fighting and screaming and punching me and pulling my hair and choking me and chasing Blaine and pulling Blaine's hair and punching Blaine. And I'm just like, oh my God, I tried to lay on top of him so that he couldn't get up anymore. And he just started biting me everywhere, all over my body. He ripped my nails off, like, bit my finger. It was all bruised up. I actually still have this from when he was in the middle of the street, and I got, like, road burn because I was getting dragged with him. And, yeah, he bit my chest. I had a huge bruise on my chest. I had his blood all over me. And Blaine did not, like, he hardly fought back because I was freaking out. I was like, first of all, I was telling him, like, leave him alone, get away from him, leave. And Blaine wouldn't leave because he didn't want Owen to hurt me. And it was just like a shit show. And then Owen said something very fucked up regarding Blaine's child. And he specifically said that he was going to kill her, and she was inside of our house sleeping. So I think just, like, as a parent, like, once someone says something bad about your kid, you just, like, lose your shit. After he said that, Blaine, like, I was trying to he was laying on the floor in front of our house, and I was trying to get him inside because he was screaming to kill him at the top of his lungs. And I was like freaking out. Like, that hurt me so bad to see him like in that state. And I was just begging him to stop, telling him I love him. And he was like, you don't love me. And like, it was really heartbreaking and devastating. And I was still trying to protect him. Like, despite everything, like, I was still worried about him and how he felt. And he was screaming really loud that I was afraid that the cops were going to get called, and I really didn't want him to go to jail. So I was trying to ask Blaine to help me carry him inside. And Blaine was like, no, I can't come over there because every time I come over there, like, he tries to hit me. And that's true, because he would get close and then Owen would like try to like get up and start chasing after him. And so I was like grabbing Owen, like, come on, please, we need to go inside. And he's screaming, no, let me die, leave me alone. And I'm like, what the hell? So he gets up, tries fighting Blaine. Blaine hit him hit him a good time, and he hit him like here in his face, and he got a cut in his eye here, and it was bleeding really bad. And so the pictures that I have from that night, Owen looks like he got his ass beat. But he really only, like, the next day, even after he got out of the hospital, he only has, like, a little stitch right here. Whereas, like, I feel like me and Blaine were beat up more than he was. And it was just from trying to, like, restrain him and, like, calm him down. Anyway, one of our neighbors comes outside and screams that she called the cops. It's like 2 a.m. And I don't know, I kind of, like, broke down. And I was just like, Owen, you need to go inside. So he gets up, runs into the house, tries to lock me out, but I was able to push myself in, and then just starts breaking everything. So he comes in, he like smashes this vase off of the table, flowers hit the wall everywhere, there's water, flowers, vase, glass, everything. He like pushes a chair over, he kicks in the oven, the glass on the oven, so there's glass shattered everywhere. He kicks in the cabinet under the sink. He's throwing up in the sink right after he does that, and I'm trying to get him to the couch. So I move him to the couch, and I finally get him like laid down, and he just laid there, and that was it. And then next thing you know, there's red and blue flashing lights outside of my house, and I was like, fuck. Like I really didn't want him to go to jail. And I was so traumatized and like shaken up from everything that's going on. So I literally had no clue what to do. So the police end up coming, and here are some pictures from that night. So in this picture, my husband is in the bed. I don't know what I can and can't show because a lot of it is like really bloody, but this was after the police came in and brought him out to the ambulance. This is the fire department in my house. There you can see that my oven is smashed. Yeah. And the rest of the pictures are very gory, so I don't want to share them just because I don't want this to get taken down. But yeah, so that was that night, and after he was taken away in the ambulance, I had to talk to the police. There was a police report made. I tried to protect him as much as I could while making the report. He was taken away in the ambulance, and I called the hospital all night trying to make sure that he was okay, but they couldn't give me any information about him because of, you know, the things he was saying, like, and the state that he was in. But ultimately the police said that it was like mutual combat between the two boys, and I was like, okay, whatever. And so yeah, after that, I don't know. He got picked up from the hospital by his parents the next morning, and I had his phone because he left it when the ambulance took him, and I could not get a hold of him. All of our communication from that point forward was through the police. His mom was helping him do that, whatever. And it just was like 2 weeks of no contact until I finally was able to talk to him and talk him into meeting me somewhere so that we can talk about what's going on. And obviously at that point we both knew we were going to be getting a divorce and how we were going to split things, and we had dogs together, so we wanted to talk about what we were going to do with the dogs and our other pets. And so we met up on a Sunday at a restaurant, and we had a very good conversation. It was really heartbreaking and really eye-opening, and it was crazy seeing him after, you know, everything that went down, and very emotional, but we had a really good conversation. And then the next day, or I was staying in Airbnbs after this, like the day that he got picked up by his parents from the hospital, I left that house and I wouldn't go home. I was gone for like 3 weeks because I was just so traumatized and I did not want to be there. So I was staying in Airbnbs. And that Friday before I went out with him on the Sunday to go to the restaurant, I went back to the house, and I went with Blaine, and he cleaned the entire house out for me before I went in, so I didn't have to see any blood or glass or anything. And then when we met up on that Sunday, we had a really good conversation. I woke up Monday morning the next day, and Blaine convinced me to take a pregnancy test. Let's not forget about my fertility journey with my husband. So being told to take a pregnancy test really rubbed me the wrong way. I was really nervous, and I had like pregnancy test trauma, but he talked me into it, and I took a test. Okay. And so I found out I was pregnant, and I lost it at first and was so scared and so confused, and just, I don't know, I immediately called my mom. I was like, I don't know what to do. She was like, everything's gonna be okay. And I hid that pregnancy for a while. I did not tell anyone, and I didn't plan on telling anyone. I had an ultrasound. This was me at my first ultrasound, and my little baby up there on the screen. And everything looked great. I saw the baby's heartbeat. The baby was so healthy, and my brain was just so messed up from everything that's happened over the past the course of the year, the course of my marriage, and now this. So like, I was so incredibly overwhelmed, but for some reason this brought me like so much peace, and it's the only thing that I've ever genuinely wanted in my life. And so at first I was scared, but then it was like so peaceful for me, and I was so excited, and I was just living it. My pregnancy sucked. I was so sick in the beginning, like so sick. I had pregnancy insomnia. I couldn't eat anything. None of it was good. And I was in and out of the hospital so much. I found out I was pregnant June of this year, and I went on with my life, and at 12 weeks I had an appointment to check on the baby, and there was no heartbeat. So I was told that I lost the baby, and that was extremely traumatizing. And I was given options for D&C, or if I wanted to naturally like go through it, or if I wanted to take a pill, and I was just so lost and hurt and didn't know what I wanted or what I was going to do. And the world decided for me, because the next day I woke up in excruciating pain, and I knew what was going on. I knew I was miscarrying, and I tried to do it at home. I was losing a lot of blood. I was contracting really bad for a long period of time, and I ended up going to the emergency room. And when I got there, my gray sweatpants were just nothing but blood. I had blood all over my arms from like holding myself like this. I was so scared, shaking, like I felt like I was like fading in and out. It was insane. And it was very painful, and I was laboring for like 6 hours until, they decided that I finally did pass the baby with another ultrasound. They said there's nothing in there. But I had to stay in the hospital because I lost so much blood, and they were thinking that they'd need to do a blood transfusion. And I went through all of this alone, with Blaine, but alone. My whole family to go inside. All my friends, like I told you, to go inside. And this was all like my own battle, and I was scared, and I didn't tell many people. And it was so traumatizing, like I said. So once people actually started to find out, and once I told my husband what happened, because I did connect with him later on and talked to him about the whole situation and told him what went down. Once I was able to get that out, and people started to find out, they started to use my miscarriage against me and use it as a way to hurt my feelings. For example, this is my little sister's mom on her account telling me to go cheat on my husband and have another miscarriage. The little sister that's in the wedding video that I posted, that I don't have contact anymore, and this is exactly why. And just other people, like yesterday, one of the girls' friends from the video she was posting on my TikTok saying like, oh, it's probably for the best that you lost your baby. And yeah, so that's kind of like the breakdown of my marriage between my husband and I, and kind of like where I'm at afterwards. I'll do a part 10, and that will be my last part, just kind of like recapping and summing everything up and getting my final piece out. But this is what happened, and still not with my husband. We're still pretty much no contact. Moved out of our house. We're in the process of selling it, and I'm just trying to get my life back on track, you know, like I'm just over that part of life, and it's unfair and it hurts, and I'm ready to move on. Thank you guys so much for following my story time and for the comments, whether they were good or bad. You know, I really do appreciate the feedback, and I'm well aware that this whole situation was really messy, and that, you know, there's a lot of growing up that still needs to be done, but I can and will say that I've learned so much along the way, and I've learned so much in just the last few months. I feel like a lot changes when you stop surrounding yourself with people who, you know, don't want anything good for you, and that's who I was surrounded by. And I know for a fact that I'm not innocent. I'm not saying that. I know that my husband isn't the only one in the wrong. We both made bad decisions, and we both messed up a lot. And so we, as a team, are the reason why our marriage failed. And it's sad, and it's a good thing at the same time, because we are so young and we have so much life ahead of us, and we have so much to learn and so much time to live and figure things out. And I don't regret anything that happened. I don't regret marrying him. I don't regret being with him. All of those things made me who I am, and I don't regret anything that I said about those girls, because I 100% meant it. Yes, I'm well over all of the situations, and no, I literally could not care any less about where everyone is at. I'm 100% focused on myself and what I'm doing moving forward, and we're in the process of, like I said, selling our house, and so there's just a lot to unpack, and there's a lot to look forward to in life, and so I'm not dwelling on this. And I thought that the TikTok I made was a silly little joke, and though I did mean the things that I said, all of it is so irrelevant to where I'm at in my life now. And I think that part of me has overcome a lot of this by being able to speak about it and share what genuinely did happen and my side of the story, and just like, you know, I wish I could say everything, but I can't, because there's so much more to it than what I'm even able to share. And not only is there just so much more to it, it's just one of those things that, like, you can take the information that you hear and you can do what you want with it. I have nothing to hide. I have a lot of proof and evidence of everything that's happened, and so when all of these people, you know, immediately thought that I was in the wrong, it really made me turn against them and not trust them anymore either, because nobody even asked me what happened. Nobody asked me how I felt or if I was okay. And like I said, I just went through a lot of that by myself, and I hid a lot of it, and I never wanted to make my husband look like a bad person. Still don't. But, you know, everyone made up their own story, and they moved along, and they came up with their own conclusions. And whether you do or don't agree with me, it's what I did, and I can't change it. And it's what he did, and he can't change it. All we can do is learn and move on and grow and be better people for ourselves and for people that we meet in the future, and whatever it is that we end up doing. But yes, if there's anything that needs like explanation on, or if you guys have any questions, or if you're interested in a more shortened version of story times from me, because I have a lot of embarrassing stories, just let me know. Thank you guys for the support, and yeah, thank you.